Seafood. Order our fresh hot snapper, grouper, mahi, and more. They're boneless, skinless, flash frozen the same day, and individually vacuum wrapped. Pick the size filet you want, the amount you want, and checkout's easy at fastfreshseafood.com. The best thing, every fish is on sale. Fastfreshseafood.com. Caught fresh for you, delivered straight to you. Stay home and stay safe.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you once again across the Sunshine State. We're soaring high on FM and AM. And if you're listening on radio right now, you want to set it to this station, because this is the go-to place at this time for what I said, the most electrifying show, and we mean that literally. And we're doing something about it because we have conversations to demonstrate that we don't have to rely on politics and tribalism. You'll listen to politicians during the news break, and all they do is scapegoat the other side. They got nothing to offer. Nothing. Zero. So consider this program a political atheist program. We don't believe in the God of the state. We believe that human beings, we have to roll up our sleeves and challenge status quo, challenge sacred cows, and unleash a revolutionary spirit, not of violence, a spirit of taking care of our neighbor by innovating where people say it's impossible to innovate. That's something we need in this country more, in this world, more than ever. And joining me now for our Science and You edition of our program that we do every Thursday is our chief science advisor and physicist friend, Dr. Yu. How you doing?
Thank you, David, for having me on. I'm doing great. Thank you.
We got a lot of stories to cover, so you better buckle up. Here we go.
Wow.
Here's a story in phys.org. Quirky response to magnetism presents quantum physics mystery. Uh-oh. The search is on to discover new states of matter and possibly new ways of encoding, manipulating, and transporting information. One goal is to harness materials' quantum properties for communications that go beyond what's possible with conventional electronics. Quote, exploring the complexity of topological materials along with other intriguing emerging phenomena such as magnetism and superconductivity is one of the most exciting and challenging areas of focus for the materials science community at the U.S. Department of Energy's Brookhaven National Laboratory. That's from Peter Johnson, who's a senior physicist in condensed matter. So apparently, when you have magnetism, the article says, when you have magnetism near the surface, you can have these other exotic states of matter that arise from the coupling of the topological insulator with the magnetism, said Dan Nivola. If we can find topological insulators with their own intrinsic magnetism, we should be able to efficiently transport electrons of a particular spin in a particular direction. What do you make of this? I mean, are they confused here? Can you help sort out what's going on? So they go on to say, is the magnetism different at the surface, or is there something exotic that we just don't understand, Nivola said.
Well, interesting. They're discussing about the quantum property. Started with quantum property, which is a mystery even to the physicists who teach in quantum mechanics. However, if you read a little deeper, it ends up talking about magnetic properties and the superconductivity, which means just how electricity moving, without the resistance, right? And super less resistance. So that's why it's not almost not consuming any resistance and heat and no energy waste. It can last forever. And all these things are magnetic properties. Right. When you have at a fundamental level, every single particles are magnetic particles. Of course, if they started called quantum particles, that means the smallest, even smaller than atoms, subatomic particles. So they are all magnetic, they're all charged, magnetic charged. And the superconductivity can happen at that level if a super cool temperature means less disturbance. And what happens? At the magnetic, called the magnetic repulsion will take in place. So that's why it can keep the particles floating instead of contacting, cause friction, and keep them floating and vibrating. So that's how you can have electricity flow during the motion, vibration motion and floating vibration, almost with no resistance. And at that moment, you can make electronics to run at a super smaller power and run longer time. Yes, material does have that property. And if we explore this property, and we can improve our superconducting, use the superconducting properties, and for electronics, and can save tons of energy.
Yeah, Johnson, one of the researchers in this experiment on phys.org says, Dan did this very careful experiment which enabled him to look at the activity in the surface region and identify two different electronic states on that surface, one that might exist on any metallic surface and one that reflected the topological properties of the material. The former was sensitive to the magnetism, which proves that the magnetism does indeed exist on the surface. However, the other one that we expected to be more sensitive had no sensitivity at all. So there must be some exotic physics going on.
Yes, that's part of a material property. If you have two magnetic field, one way that they can superimpose, become stronger. So now you exhibit a higher, stronger magnetic field. So now you see electricity and superconducting, all the electromagnetic phenomena you see. And if they connect differently, you know what happens? They become neutralized. Wow. Imagine you have two horseshoe magnets. Individually, so they are magnets. So if you have a rotating conducting material, you will see electricity flows in the conducting materials, right? Uh-huh. However, if you put them side by, if you put the two horseshoe magnets together, opposite pole together, you know what happens? They connect together, become a circle, they are neutralized. They lost all the magnetic field because all the magnetic field on the surface of this horseshoe neutralized. So every single point have a north and also have a pole south. So when the magnetic field lost in that part, so now you have a totally different behavior of material. And utilize sometimes with magnetic field increase by superposition, or sometimes you cancel each other, you have a different property. And manipulate those properties, you can make a different type of electronic behavior.
That's very interesting. Yeah, this is we're going to have to unpack this further. I want to go to another story though, because we have just limited time to go through some of these stories that are of interest in the scientific world. And one is a new cosmic tension. This is in quantamagazine.org. You shared this article with me. It says, the universe might be too thin. So I've heard of the conspiracy of a flat Earth, and you're saying we have a fat universe? What's going on, Dr. Yu? Fat universe, thin universe.
Yes, the thin and the fat. Here, the so-called too thin means the density. The density is too small, too thin. Instead of supposed to, based on the current theory, all the matter supposed to under gravity, they're supposed to clumping together, right? So we have this gravity pole. So supposedly, galaxies supposed to pull together, but it expected. But actually, they are clumping is much less. Means the density is much less than we expected. However, on the other hand, so this is, if you read the particle, you look at the title, said a new cosmic tension. So that means we have another tension. That tension has been for many years. Another tension has been existed for many years, which was so-called tension means the crisis in cosmology. So we use another word called have tension. That's called Hubble's paradox. We know the Hubble constant, so that's a measure the rate of expansion of the universe. We said, it's constant. We said Hubble constant means constant everywhere, the rate of expansion universe. However, why we have tension? We found that it's only constant at a given time everywhere in universe in space, but not in time. When you have a different time, so you have this constant today, when you move tomorrow, you find that constant, what is it? Constant is different. And how different? The universe expanded faster rate. So the constant becomes bigger. So that means it's no longer. So this is the one tension. However, the new discovery, the new tension comes say, no, the universe not only expanding faster than we thought. They said that the universe based on the current theory, okay, called standard theory of cosmology. That the universe also have attraction force, right? Between they supposed to clumping faster, clumping bigger, but we're observing the opposite. It's not thicker, it's thinner, means expanded far further, and the materials actually, make their densities thinner. So somehow the two opposites, some kind of phenomena. So that's why intrigue physicists, they think about it, is that something new besides of dark matter and the dark energy? We already know that's a mystery, and we still have not figured out what that is. But now we have two strange phenomena, and which conflict each other. So they're talking about it. So what's going on? So do we have another new particle? Or do we have a new force? Or do we have a new phenomenon? Which one theory talking about, do we have this kind of dark matter can convert it to dark energy? In that case, dark energy pushing a universe expanding rate faster, right? However, dark matter keep them have more mass, missing mass, keep them clumping together, right? So now we have too much dark energy, so too less dark matter. That means violate all the current equations. So how do? We said, can we convert some dark energy to be dark matter, or vice versa, to solve this problem? It's a very creative idea.
What's your bottom line conclusion of this story so far for folks at home?
Okay. Yes, the bottom line, the dark matter and the dark energy does not exist. The universe expanding is because all the galaxies, all the matter have a magnetic field, and when you have a magnetic force, when you have the like force called repel, you have the same charge, same type of force. So what happens? Like force repel. So the universe, number one, the universe is expanding is due to magnetic repulsion from like pole, a pole in matter. So that also says the current standard model of cosmology, based on the general theory of relativity, is wrong. Because that theory, based on the expansion from creation of the Big Bang, and based on the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago, and based on that, called create the Big Bang expansion rate calculated. So I believe the universe has no Big Bang, has no beginning and no end. So the Big Bang theory does not exist. In that sense, so the cosmology equation does not exist. So that's why we have a contradiction.
Wow. Let's hold that. We're going to continue on Science and You. We're here with physicist Dr. Yu. When we continue, we're going to look at this headline in the dailygalaxy.com. The invisible universe, a primordial magnetic soul, pervades the cosmos. More with Dr. Hughes in just a moment. Back in a second. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman. Need a trusted hand sanitizer made in the USA? Physicians Group Hand Sanitizer reduces bacteria that can cause disease. Our liquid sanitizer is made of 75% ethanol alcohol. Our gel sanitizer is 70%. Neither requires soap or water. Simply cover all surfaces of your hands, then rub them together until dry. Our hand sanitizer comes in 2 to 16-ounce bottles and gallon jugs. Order now at easyhandsanitizer.com and receive 10% off all orders over $100. That's easyhandsanitizer.com.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option, monetary metals. They pay interest on gold in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski. We're doing our Science and You Thursday edition of the program. During the rest of the week, we talk about politics and culture and arts and all kinds of field economics. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But we're joined by Dr. Yu, who's a physicist who has a revolutionary simplified theory that makes so much more sense than so much of the old dogmas. And so we're able to explore the universe together in new and exciting and logical ways and not have to rely on, black box theories for everything. One of the things I see here that's interesting to me, Dr. Yu, is phys.org has an article that says strongest magnetic field in universe directly detected by X-ray Space Observatory. The InSight HXMT team has performed extensive observations of the accreting X-ray pulsar and has discovered a magnetic field of around 1 billion Tesla on the surface of the neutron star. This is the strongest magnetic field conclusively detected in the universe, and this work is published in the Astrophysical Journal, was primarily conducted by several different folks here. But the point I wanted to get to is that it just seems like every headline just keeps pointing in the direction of what you have pioneered, Dr. Yu, which is that this whole universe is magnetic. And to add to that, going back to this story on dailygalaxy.com, the invisible universe, a primordial magnetic soul pervades the cosmos. The world's astronomers, the article says, are increasingly probing the mystery of where the enormous magnetic fields that permeate our universe are coming from. from Earth to Mars to the Milky Way to intergalactic voids and beyond to the darkest, most remote regions of the cosmos. And they're just having a hard time figuring this out. The article at the end says magnetism, quote, is a little bit like a living organism, unquote, says Torstein, a theoretical astrophysicist at the Max Planck Institute for Astrophysics, because magnetic fields tap into every free energy source they can hold on to and they grow. They can spread and affect other areas with their presence where they grow as well. Any thoughts on this?
This is one of the most important evidence to demonstrate the entire universe, okay, made by magnetic particles, which means every matter has a particle, every matter has a magnetic field, and every void is talking about, this is a cosmology, talking about every void in space. And whenever you have as long as you have a new way to detect a magnetic field, and things like that, you'll find the magnetic field. What that tells us every single thing have a magnetic field. And even in the void have a magnetic field. How do we know it? Because light is an oscillation of a magnetic field. Vibration matter. In order for light propagation, you have to have the medium, and the medium has to be a magnetic field. So you have to have a magnetic gas cloud filled with the field. Without the magnetic field, we're only able to see light. So that's why, as long as we can see the light all the way back to, say, supposed to the Big Bang time. So what that means? That means that from the birth of the universe to now, since we can see the light all the way across 13.8 billion, so that means that the space is filled with magnetic field, filled with magnetic matter. So that means everything are made of magnetic field. All matter has a magnetic field, and all magnetic fields have matter, made by matter. So that's why I think this is so important in the future. And as evidence, the universe only has one fundamental force. That's magnetic force. All gravitational force and the strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, they are all different manifestations of magnetic force. There is no other magnetic force, fundamental force than magnetic force.
Yeah, and it's interesting what did you think about him talking about magnetism is like a living organism, that astrophysicist?
Yes, this is very important. The reason everybody made by matter, by electron and what is it, positron, and also made by atom, made matter. So why all the living things have consciousness? Why they can grow? So that means every single particle has to have a consciousness, have to have a power to grow, have to have a life. What is the life? Magnetic force. Magnetic force is the force binding smaller particles together to bigger. So that's the force can grow. And also consciousness. Consciousness is vibrating of magnetic field. So you can sense existence over distance. How do you sense it? Magnetic field. Vibration, and you can sense through internal, electricity, so magnetic field oscillation and create electricity, so that's why you can sense it.
Dr. Yu, always a pleasure to have you on, and I tell people all the time, most important scientists I know, and we're going to continue to explain this information to folks around the country and around the world. We'll be back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. The madness of 2020.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
I'm just so fed up with these Democrats. It's unbelievable.
Get it straight from Chris Plant.
They're so hypocritical. It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plant Show.
This has just got me going off.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States.
Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point.
You're a voice of reason in the sea of idiots.
The Chris Plant Show. Weekdays 11 to 2. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
President Trump said he did not lie to the American people when he said COVID-19 was no more serious than the seasonal flu. He also says his administration's push to reopen schools is based on science.
2% of the coronavirus deaths have occurred in those under the age of 25, and most had underlying conditions where there was a problem.
Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris at a campaign event in Florida says the president risked the lives of many Americans by downplaying the danger.
This is an individual who is not concerned about the health, safety, and well-being of the American people.
Johns Hopkins University says the U.S. daily COVID death toll is back up over 1,000. A scaled-down coronavirus relief package failed to get the 60 votes it needed to pass. A wildfire burning in the foothills of California's Sierra Nevada mountains has destroyed or damaged more than 2,000 homes and other buildings. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I'm David Gronowski. We're here in the Sunshine State on FM and AM across this state, welcoming you to a new kind of media conversation, one that's just going to be a breath of fresh air, where we're not going to get into political tribalism. We're going to get into the facts. We're going to get into logic. We're going to get into common sense. And we're going to get into positive things that we can be motivated to improve our lives where we can, not being dependent, sitting there waiting for some political savior to come and let us worship them. We're not going to do that. So joining me now to have this kind of conversation, particularly in the field of economics and how our market is working, and how it's working in terms of all this political chicanery that's being done to our people, is the president of the Mises Institute, Jeff Deist. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, David, I'm doing great. And I'll tell you what, at this point, I would accept just a bodyguard rather than a political savior. I mean, we need something.
Yeah, we're going to have something, I guess. But in the meantime, I wanted to get your take. I put this out today on social media, and I wanted to get your take. What is the real difference between North Korea and Antifa?
Is this a rhetorical question, David?
I'm just looking for an answer because, I really want to know, because I think, Antifa is like the dog that's chasing the mailman every day. They're always trying to chase after that car. But what are they going to do when they get to it? Like if they actually could administer a state. I'm looking at the way North Korea administers their state, and I'm looking at the things that Antifa is demanding. Total obedience. Silence is violence. If you are silent in what we demand, then you are violent, and therefore we have all right to use force and deadly force if necessary. Isn't that what Kim Jong-un and those folks say? If you don't sing the songs of the leader, your silence is violence. You're going to a camp.
Well, we accuse people of being polemical and saying, you can't compare some Antifa rioters in the United States to an authoritarian North Korean regime. But I think here's the comparison, is that they're both animated by the same impulses, which are conformity and control over what you think, what you say, what you do. I mean, that's collectivism at its base level. So, yes, there's a comparison. And honestly, the idea that authoritarianism comes from the right, comes from social conservatism, I think is something that the left has very skillfully planted in the American public's mind through the media. But if we really look at history, if we really look at what's going on today, it's clearly the left that wants to lock us down and keep us from our jobs, force us to get vaccines, restrict what we say, put us in jail for saying the wrong thing, kick us out of school, force us to lose our jobs, kick us off social media platforms. I mean, these are all, left-wingers leading these charges today. So I have no interest in authoritarians of any stripe, and there certainly have been bad authoritarians on the right, but I get a little tired with this whataboutism, because right now we just have to be honest enough to say that it's coming from the left. I mean, the threat to America is that, that nice 8th grade teacher at your local junior high school who, supports Antifa, supports BLM, thinks we should nationalize entire industries in the United States and wants to put people in jail for political mouthspeak. I mean, that's far more of a threat than, Mike Huckabee and Vice President Pence are going to impose a Christian theocracy or something. I mean, that's completely far-fetched by comparison.
Well, I think you're right. The real, the same aspirations are there in both ideologies. A listener online says Antifa is the embryonic form of North Korea. And as he said that, it made me think, Jeff, of that movie Alien. Remember where the little baby come out? The little baby alien? And that's what you see here. It's like, every revolutionary movement starts off kind of like a little baby duckling. It's just burning a little bit burn one building, burn another. It's just trying to have expression. And before you know it, once they've caught up to the mail truck, and they're like, oh, okay, we can run this truck now. They're like, okay, well, I'm still angry. I still have an envious hatred. I'm still obsessed with power. Now what can I do? I've got missiles to use. I've got police to use. This is exciting. Yeah, and it's all about power. It's all about authority. But most importantly, it's all about winning. I mean, this is what people forget. They look for fairness in politics. They look for procedure. They look for process. And, at least one side has just given up on that stuff. Now it's all about winning, about routing the other side, about vanquishing them. And that can, whether that comes via the ballot box or whether it comes in the streets or whether it comes from the courts or whether it comes from social media companies and big corporations with woke boards, imposing their worldview on the rest of us. I mean, that's what it means to win, is to have a anything goes mindset, to say that the ends justify the means. And if you believe in political liberty, the ends don't justify the means. I mean, we believe that there's no one-size-fits-all rules for everyone, that we ought to be cautious and judicious when applying state power because we don't really know what's best for 330 million people, and that government ought to act in a circumspect fashion, if at all, when it comes to most human problems, and that government should be on the side as sort of a referee rather than an active agent, a player in the game. And our friends on the left absolutely discard this. They're not interested in the Constitution. They're not interested in rules. They're not interested in democracy at the end of the day, because look at their rhetoric when the wrong guy wins. So that, democracy is a means to an end for the left, and that's it. And once that means breaks down, then they find another one. So that's discouraging. But the hopeful things happening in America right now, David, are happening outside and beyond politics. There's no question about that. And Biden versus Trump is shaping up, I think, to be, not just divisive. We all know that, but more importantly, discouraging in the sense that it just shows us as such an unserious country. And that's, I think, what is particularly bothersome, is that we've almost developed a pride in our anti-intellectualism, in being unserious, and just having wishful thinking, almost childish wishful thinking, that we can just ignore economics, or we can just ignore human nature, and magically create the world we want through government force and politics. And that is something we have to get beyond. If there's one thing we can teach children, it's the limits of politics and the reality that things in life have to be built and created. They can't just be magically summoned. And when you try to do that, what you end up doing is
is breaking a lot of eggs to make an omelet, and that's exactly what the left intends to do. And I'm not sure that we're going to have a normal election in the sense that we have a winner and a loser and everyone just accepts that. In fact, I think that's increasingly unlikely.
So do you think that these the folks who are really buying into the religious zeal of the woke and the Antifa movements, do you think that it's, there's a good chance that they can be deprogrammed and get restored to a sane mind where they can value, hey, you know what, I used to want to burn down car dealerships and stuff, but now I decided that I'd like to start a band, and I'd like to go on the road or make some music and just have a great life and build a family. You think that's ever going to happen for these folks, or are they just going to get buried into that shrunken mindset,
Well, the analogy here would be the radicals of the 60s and 70s. And there were violent movements in the 60s, certainly. There were very radical movements that infiltrated government. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of those people, those baby boomers, just sort of burned out of it and went on to just become bankers and lawyers and doctors and normal people and college professors. But they didn't really give up their ideology. They softened their approach and their methods. But a lot of them, the Bill Clintons of the world, the Al Gores of the world, the Joe Bidens of the world, are far more radical in their personal beliefs than they've ever let on. Mm-hmm. I would say that applies to Barack Obama. I think if you knew in other words, the left is in their private lives, in their private perspective, are far more radical than they let on. I would say the right is less. Mm. The right talks about abolishing the IRS or getting rid of abortion or all these kinds of things, but they don't really mean it. The left not only means it, but in their heart of hearts would go much farther. So that's the difference. I think that the radicals of the 60s were constrained by reality at some point and wanted to go on and have somewhat normalized, but they didn't give up the ideology. So I'm not sure that people change so easily. And there's a whole fascinating field out there to study, why do people believe what they believe politically and how do they have a change of heart? There are certainly former liberals and former conservatives who switched and so that's but it certainly appears for most people that by the time you're 30 or 35, maybe, you may not change your perspective. You might just change your tactics.
Right. Yeah. I hope that this temperature can cool down a little bit so folks can realize that tearing things down won't make them feel satisfied the way it feels like when you're in a righteous fervor. That's a crowd mentality that just doesn't translate into a real lasting catharsis, because ultimately that might sound like a fancy word, but that's what we're craving after. That famous song, Can't Get No Satisfaction. It's that kind of release of all that frustration that folks have when they join into these movements. I have something, I've got a grievance, and if I join in a movement of righteous condemnation, somehow we can have catharsis. And it never really pans out, because it's just kind of like a mirage. You think that you're tilting at a dragon. It's just a windmill.
Yeah, there's no question. If you're looking for salvation from politics, you're going to have a very frustrating life. There's going to be an election every 4 years or a local election in your town or whatever it might be. And to hang your hat on that or to be psychologically attached to that, I think is very unwise. You have to derive satisfaction from your own life and from your own actions, because what you're really asking is for other people to see the world as you do, or insist that other people see the world as you do politically. And that's just not rational. There's going to be differences in the way humans view things. And we all know, David, that social cooperation is just another word for economics. It's just markets. That's all. That's social cooperation. Politics is the opposite of markets. Politics is a turf battle, to see who controls the apparatus of state power. Mm-hmm. So it's one gang fighting another, and so politics is just a precursor or a less nasty form of war. It's this, but they're both deciding things other than cooperatively. So that's why I'm a big believer in politics in economics over politics. It's not always the easiest sell because people sure love to get bound up in an election and their tribal team. But in the long run, those people you hate, those people who have different political views, they're still going to be there after the election, even if you win. They're not so easily vanquished. And, if we could get people to think about scaling back what's political, then we can make some headway.
Right. Let's continue this thought. When we continue, I want to get into this recent story that's been published on Mises.org called "The Welfare State Did What Slavery Couldn't Do." That was published by Wendy McElroy, who is on Mises.org. You can check it out. We'll find out what she's getting after in this article and continue with Jeff Deist, president of the Mises Institute, back in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals, join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
For over 18 years, I've enjoyed an AV rating of 5.0 out of 5.0 from Martindale Hubbell. I received this from my fellow lawyers and judges. If you've been injured, call Diaco Law at 888-SOS-FIRM. At Diaco Law, we will take your call.
Medical malpractice or wrongful death? Call SOS. Call Diaco Law at 888-SOS-FIRM for a free injury case evaluation.
And remember, there's no fees or costs unless we win. At Diaco Law, we will take your call.
Hi, this is Gary from Good Faith Home Buyers, and I buy houses cash. If you own your house and want to sell it fast, call me at 727-330-6224. That's 727-330-6224. I can pay cash and close fast. I buy houses in any condition, any price range, and any location. I'm not a realtor or associated with any realty company. I'm a private real estate investor who buys several houses a month and wants to buy more. I'll buy inherited houses, divorce houses, behind in payment houses. I'll even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Do you own a house that is trash and needs thousands of dollars in repairs? Great, because I love buying junky houses. I buy vacant houses, abandoned houses, condemned houses, and foreclosure houses. If you own a house and want to sell it fast, call me at 727-330-6224. That's 727-330-6224.
Our monetary system is failing. Negative interest rates, growing debt, highly speculative market, and the dollar is being devalued by the Fed. Investing your wealth has never been more challenging. Who wants to earn just 1% interest annually in a savings account? There is another option. Monetary metals. They pay interest on gold in gold, with no storage costs ever. Visit interestongold.com/David. That's interestongold.com/David. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski, your host, here with Jeff Deist, president of the Mises Institute. Mises.org is their website, and you can follow Jeff personally at Jeff Deist on Twitter. And speaking of Twitter, Jeff, I saw it's trending here in Orlando, University of Central Florida, UCF. I guess there is a conservative speaker, Caitlin Bennett, who you can see video now, happened just moments ago, a whole mob of students chasing her into an Einstein Bagels. Certainly not a lot of Einsteins in that crowd chasing after someone they disagree with. And I guess she was hiding in a electrical room because she's a conservative, and the students feel like they have a right to, mob attack anybody that they disagree with. There's video of them, whole mobs of students pushing and shoving at her security detail. So, I mean, that's the kind of infantilization that's taking place in our own community, Jeff. You'd think you come to Florida, you get away from that, but this mind virus, it's contagious. And, our values, you and I, Jeff, we believe in individual liberty, which would solve so much of the injustice issues that these clowns and these crowds say they're for, but all they do is bully a woman. I don't care what her views are. I don't know what their grievance is. It just looks like a bunch of stupefied children.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the UCF student makeup. I know it's a huge school. It's one of the largest student bodies in the whole country. And, it's sad to hear a conservative speaker like that. I wouldn't want anyone to do that to any speaker on campus. So, look, this is the kind of thing that it's just a drumbeat in America. These people aren't going to give up. They aren't going to just go away. So that's why when we look at political solutions, let's say you're a big Trump fan and you think Trump winning is going to solve this. Well, it's not going to solve it. He's president now, and this sort of thing is happening. As long as society is this politicized, we should expect this, because politics is a precursor to war. So the midway point between politics and outright war is these kind of riots and street skirmishes and mobbings and these kinds of things. So this is, this shows that we're trending the wrong direction, because from politics towards war instead of from politics back towards civil society and economics. So, I think we just have to fight back, and you can't expect the media to help. The media will try to say that this is somehow, a reaction to the right or something like that. So it's sad that the youngest people are college-age students are so conformist and like-minded, very gullible in their views.
Yeah, and of course, we have Kamala Harris in Florida today and so on. And here's a person, she calls herself a Harry Truman Democrat, so she proudly takes on a warmonger brand for a man who dropped nuclear bomb on Nagasaki. But that doesn't get you chased out of a campus. So you can you can cheerlead going into a war policy like Harry Truman. That's what she calls herself, a Truman Democrat. This is a person who would do very much everything needed to start a new war in Syria. All the people of color in Syria being bombed, the violence, the tearing apart of human beings. And these stupid TV programmed children, there's not a drop of outrage about it. They're just chasing after low hanging fruit. Some girl, that doesn't have any bomb power. She can't, she's not going to drop a single drone strike on Syria. They're going to worship Kamala Harris because they're told to by their TV, even though she's the one that's going to lock up people and has locked up people for nonviolent crimes. She's the one that sent police to create really brutal situations for nonviolent crimes. She's the one that laughs and wants to have a Truman-like foreign policy. Can you believe it, Jeff? This stuff, you just have to speak it to see how ridiculous it is,
Well, and let's not forget, Kamala Harris is like Mother Teresa compared to some left academics who speak quite openly on campus. In other words, they're not just a speaker at a campus. They're tenured, paid, highly paid professors who say incredibly incendiary and violent things, provocative things, hateful things. Publicly funded universities like UCF, but also the private ones or the quasi-private ones, are basically left-wing think tanks. And so the idea that some conservative speaker gets run out while left professors can opine all day, that communism is benign or whatever, is it's a troubling time. And so the most rational response right now is to remove your sanction to the extent possible. Go from that school, which means don't let your kids go there. Let these schools just be entirely full of terrible leftists, and they'll find pretty quickly that their numbers shrink. Talk to your local or state legislator and say, what's going on with the funding of this school where people are chased out if they have the wrong perspective, the wrong viewpoint, and don't sit there like an idiot and send your kid to an institution that's designed to turn your kid against you. That seems to me the most direct form of activism any of us can engage in right now, is just remove our sanction from these universities.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that that's something that I'm always looking for. What can people listening do in their own sphere of influence? Because it's easy to listen, to see the demonic spirit and to just get so consumed with negativity. And we have to be able to look at it. We can't hide. You got to be able to see evil for what it is. And stupid plus evil is a bad mix. And that's what you get with the crowd. That's what you get with the crowd in a very powerful media that legitimizes and tells the crowd, it's okay. You can say stuff like silence is violence, and we're going to legitimize and cover your barbaric, brutish frivolity. We're going to cover and legitimize this. Don't worry. That's a scary place to weaponize that kind of ignorance on a mass scale. So what are some other positive things that you think of, Jeff, as a parent? You talked about we need to be active in withdrawing our funding and support of these universities that allow this kind of barbaric behavior. Anything else that comes to mind?
Well, there's two encouraging trends. One is that since colleges are no longer teaching what you and I would consider true liberal education, which is basically Western civilization, history, philosophy, the literary canon, the classics, logic, rhetoric. Since they're not teaching these things anyway, I mean, you can go out and learn those things on your own. I mean, these are, all of the important works of Western civilization are available to all of us. I mean, we can go out and read those on our own. And then the more technical training you need for a variety of professions, especially in software, which is probably the number one tech industry in the United States, is available online. There's a new Google monthly academy, which is very low cost, and you pay something like $50 a month, and you work through the kind of training that Google would like to see in its applicants, and then you get a certificate from Google at the end. So both the technical side and then the what we would consider classical education side can be covered without these universities at a much lower cost and at any time in life and at your own pace. Now, there still is sort of that middle ground. If you want to be a doctor or lawyer or engineer, you're going to need some formal education because of the certificates involved. You and I might argue that those those professions were better served by the apprentice system,
right,
which survived well in the 20th century. But there are alternatives out there, and you just got to have the discipline to go teach yourself Aristotle, rather than requiring some SJW professor.
And we didn't get to it today, but I want people to check out this article. The Welfare State Did What Slavery Couldn't Do, which is on Mises.org by Wendy McElroy. And it's about how this welfare state has ruined so many lives, so many innocent lives. And that's the kind of stuff you can get when you have a self-education, self-guided education. Thanks again for joining us, Jeff. Always a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you, David.
I'm David Gronowski. Email me. Hey, if you're part of that little mob on UCF and you're listening right now, driving maybe to go to Wendy's or something, email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. We always provide free exorcisms on this program. Godspeed.